Hey ho, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of 30 Videos in 30 Days. I'm going to try and find just the right level to hang that at. So this is probably functional enough. We are at day 24. Some days I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. Today I actually do, and I feel it's kind of important to share. Today is about busting the ghosts of the past. And this is mostly just something that I had learned to accomplish over the years and something I've learned to be aware of over the years, but I don't think a lot of people necessarily get it. So most people, especially the more neurodiverse types, have a pretty keen understanding of their own individual mental cycles and such. Sometimes it's over the course of the week. You know, I can expect to be stressed on Monday. I can expect to be relaxed on Friday. When I was still working, my worst day happened to be Wednesdays for whatever reason. I just did not have a good Wednesday for months on end. And then, of course, there's the folks who are aware of seasonal affective disorder. Now, what seasonal affective disorder is, simply put, is when your moods vary in very close alignment to the actual seasons. People will tend to go through a depressive period during the winter months when there's not as much sun, when there's a lot of additional stressors, and things along those lines. Now, mind you, that is something that I had struggled with for a very long time because I've got a January birthday. So not only do I have the weather change, not only do I have the additional busyness and stress, but I also have all that retrospective sense in the air, you know, where the end of the year is a time for everyone to really think about the last year and to think about the new one. So that really heavy dwelling on accomplishment and that heavy dwelling on new goals, followed up by a January birthday, which means that not only am I getting that at the end of December, I'm getting it in January as well. And it's a killer. But one thing that it took me a long time to really notice and acknowledge is every individual is going to have their own individual annual schedule. And that schedule is going to be impacted by not so much the weather, not so much your career, not so much your health, but by your past. An excellent indicator is for a lot of people who have lost their parents. They can always expect that on Mother's or Father's Day, they're going to go through some anguish. A lot of people go through anguish on the anniversary of a significant death. A lot of people go through anguish when they find themselves in a circumstance that they were remarkably powerless for a long period of time. One of my personal big ones every year is I could count on a fairly manic and occasionally obsessive second couple weeks of August and into September sometimes, mostly because I would go from a month and a half from being one of the most important people in the city as a pirate and a week's worth of parades and activity every day to nothing. And the hyperstimulation to the negative stimulation, you understand it, you expect it, you know what's going on, but you really don't realize how much that sort of thing impacts your day to day. And these things happen. I've had some of my bigger marital conflicts, and they would all happen just prior to Seafair because my brain would not be at home. Still have challenges around my birthday, not the least of which because it's when my pirate sponsor passed on my birthday. And so there's always those big reminders. Reason why it especially came to mind is, so I'm struggling a little bit with the coaching thing, mostly because I'm just struggling a little bit with the coaching thing. Nothing new or wrong with that at all. Uh, but I was reminded that this time about 4 years ago, I lost a job at Metro. I was going to be a bus driver, and there was an incident that was never reviewed. And the more that I think back on it, the more I think I was rushed out the door, so it didn't require a review. And the day I was fired from Metro was the same day my wife's eldest sister passed. And you don't necessarily think about it, because you think, well, that was years ago. Why should it matter now? Because your brain remembers, and your brain keeps track of these cycles, and your brain keeps telling you, this is a time of year that I need to be extra conscious. This is a time of year I need to be hyper aware. Something bad happened at this point, so tradition dictates something bad is going to happen at this point again. And it sticks for years. And considering that I was having those challenges, and considering the fact that I'm struggling a little bit with the coaching thing, and I'm actually considering taking on an actual job, so it makes the coaching thing feel more like a failure around a time of year that I've already failed. So my brain is looking for me to fail right now. My brain is expecting me to fail right now, because this is the time of year where I fail. Period. Just like in another month, my brain is going to be kind of anxious at the lack of post Seafair stuff. Just like in the holidays, there's going to be those little reminders. So the big thing today is to just make a point to look back on your years. Make a point to consider what time of year your biggest impacts were, especially your biggest negative impacts. The dates where you had a divorce, or your treasured pet passed, or someone you love left you. March, I have challenges because I lost a couple of very good friends in March. Just be conscious of years past. Be conscious of the things that impacted you in years past. Because when those times start coming up, your brain, your psyche starts preparing yourself for another disappointment. It starts preparing yourself for another disaster. And be conscious that there's going to be a little bit of an up, there's going to be a little bit of a down. And if you're having a rough time today, it could just be because you had a really rough time last year or the year before. But just like everything, it's going to pass, but it's going to pass a heck of a lot easier if you're aware of it. So be aware of your past. Keep an eye out for the haunted moments that linger from previous years. Know that this too shall pass. And come back for another video tomorrow.